Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's event is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of North Orange County, which is a trusted, nonpartisan political organization that has been active for over 100 years. While we never endorse a candidate or a party, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our communities strong. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I encourage you to pick up the information that's available tonight out in the corridor. The League of Women Voters, tonight's sponsor, which is the City of Buena Park, and the participants, have not authorized any video or audio recordings of this forum other than repeat TV broadcasts provided on the local government educational and public access channel. If any recordings are made by any member of the audience, we strongly urge that the forum be recorded in its entirety and not be edited in any way. The FCC requires the videotape of a debate or forum not be edited and must be broadcast in its entirety, either live or reasonably soon after it takes place. Both the FCC and the League want to ensure that information is not manipulated to create false or misleading impressions. Therefore, no candidate is allowed to use or edit footage for campaign purposes. All questions from the audience must be written and submitted to the question sorters. Questions should deal with issues which are relevant to the City Council. Questions which are worded as a personal attack on a candidate will be rejected. Please write legibly and concisely. Thank you. The candidates have chosen lots for their positions up at the podium here. And I will be starting to ask questions, starting on the right with the first candidate. We will go across unless the question is specifically for that particular candidate. Any other candidate can answer any question that they desire. All right, are we ready to get started? We will start with opening statements. Each candidate will get 2 minutes. Mr. Knight.
Thank you. To the League of Women Voters, the members of the audience, and those residents who are watching this forum on television, thank you for taking an active interest in your community. Buena Park is on the verge of a new decade of growth and progress. Knowing where Buena Park is today, where it can and should go, and most importantly, how to achieve those visions and goals is going to be based upon the knowledge and experience of the Buena Park City Council. Buena Park as a tourist and entertainment destination is going to be a major part of this growth. I have a master's degree in finance economics, 40 years of experience in both business finance and as a performer and producer in the world of TV and live shows. I understand the business of show business. Proper planning will give Buena Park the best of both worlds, a city with a growing business community that maintains a high quality of life for our residents. For the past 24 years, I have been running a business in the community and have been an active part of Buena Park. I am past president of the Buena Park Rotary, chaired the Memorial Day program, chaired the Children's Day Shopping Fund. I'm a member of the Historical Society, created and directed the 7-part video series and interview history of Buena Park, which was on television for 5 years. And I have fun singing with the Buena Park Chorus. I have worked for the last 10 years on boards, projects, and/or committees with every member of the City Council. I would be a positive addition to the City Council, which has displayed the vision to move Buena Park forward. I'm number 4 on the ballot. I respectfully ask for your vote. 4 Baron Knight equals 4 Buena Park. My email is baron@baronknight.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Mr. Beeger?
All right, thank you to the League of Women Voters, city staff, and those of you here tonight. My name is Brian Beeger, and I want you to remember a few numbers tonight: 52, 29, and 27. 52, because my family has lived on the same street in Buena Park for the last 52 years. My children, my 2 sisters, and I went to Whitaker Elementary School, and we all graduated from Buena Park High School, the home of the Coyotes. 29, because I've been with my lovely wife for 29 years. We've raised 5 sons together. 2 are proudly serving in the military. Jason is in the Army, and Christopher's in the Air Force. 27, because I worked for Anaheim Public Works for 27 years. The foundation of my career is public service. starting as a laborer, working my way up to an operations supervisor. I've improved local parks, community centers, and more. I've also managed project budgets and staff, so I understand how our resources are to be spent responsibly to get the project done, in time and for a fair price. I support keeping our communities safe by providing public safety with the resources they need to protect us. We must continue to attract and retain the best businesses on Beach Boulevard, one of our most vital resources for local commerce. This means supporting family establishments as well as those bringing established businesses into town. I volunteered as a baseball coach and board member for the Buena Park National Little League for more than a decade. I've organized food drives and toy drives for underprivileged children. Now I wish to take another step in my community. I'm already supported by the Buena Park firefighters and Mayor Pro Tem Mark Brown, but on election day, November 4th, I'll need your support. Too often politicians have their own agenda. I want to be your representative to make sure your voice is heard. My name is Brian Beeger, and I'm ready to work for you.
Thank you, Mr. Beeger. Mr. Salehi?
Yes, hi. Good evening. My name is Al Salehai, and it's a pleasure to be with you here tonight. My family moved here approximately 20 years ago from Laguna Beach. What a town Buena Park is. The center of the Southland. We sit here on Beach Boulevard, Highway 39, the only road that can take you from the mountain to the sea. Surrounded by freeways, we can get to various airports faster than people who live kitty corner to them. Beautiful, beautiful potential. You know, a little over 100 years ago, Riverside was the wealthiest city in the entire nation. I'd love to see Buena Park move forward. However, we have multiple empty lots just sitting here. Part of that was due to RDA purchases and buying up big properties that later we could not fill. And we're looking to cherry pick and put those things in power that we look and want to have the best capacity for. But we're losing opportunity. You know, the city of Buena Park is fascinating because when I came and I wanted to help my family, they said that there were ordinances that were making people homeless. There are ordinances that make it so you have to kick people out after a certain time, even though they have the money to pay. They said that it's hurting business because my family wanted to invest in their properties and build bigger signs to attract more people because Buena Park, after all, is a tourist city. It was born from tourism, but you can't. They wanted to make the wagon wheels move, but you can't. You can pay to go to Cars Land and see it there for a premium, but I call it the Irvinification of Buena Park. That is what's happening here, and we're not Irvine. So I'm asking you, what city do you want to be a part of? I want to be a part of a city that I can invest in, I can see grow and be prosperous. It's a community. And I look forward to working with you and making that happen. I believe that when the wheels to the wagon start moving again, so will the wheels to the economy of Buena Park.
Thank you, Mr. Salehi. Mr. Ferguson?
Good evening. I too would like to thank you. Oh, not on. Good evening. I too would like to thank everybody in attendance and the League of Women Voters and the people watching at home. My name is Greg Ferguson. I don't look like your normal candidate. I do look like a current city councilman a little bit, though. I've lived in Buena Park for 24 years with my wife, Jeree. We've been married for 31 years. I have 3 children and 7 grandchildren, all locally here in Orange County, not in Buena Park, but locally. I've worked for the city of Torrance for 27 years, kind of like Brian. I started out in the garage cleaning buses, and now I am a transit coordinator for the transit department. I actually open the place in the morning and do most of the assigning and work. My major endorsements for my campaign are the Orange County firefighters and Art Brown. I served for the city on the charter committee in 2008. The next few years here are going to be interesting, watching the growth on Beach Boulevard along with the Source project. I'm hoping to see our city's budget reserves rebuild with the addition of revenues from these projects. If elected, I will push for more transparency on the growth of our city. I look forward to meeting all the citizens of Buena Park. I'm number 8 on the ballot on the bottom, so when you vote, vote from the bottom up, please. And I'd like to thank you for your time tonight. Again, my name is Greg Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Mr. Berry.
Thank you. My name is Steve Berry. I believe that public safety and criminal investigation is a primary concern of our residents. I believe that public services should be closely monitored for the protection and benefit of our local businesses, our public schools, and every resident in our city. I believe that all city services, whether it's street maintenance, public parks maintenance, or water billing, should be provided by employees that are trained and have a sincere respect for the individuals that they serve. I believe that elected representatives like myself should be, who are entrusted with the public good, should seek new ways to deliver these services and all city services without raising taxes or raising fees. I believe elected representatives should instead look to investors, to promoters, to people who want to come to our city and bring new restaurants, new hotels, and new entertainment attractions along Beach Boulevard. These types of businesses not only create long-lasting jobs, but they also create sales taxes and new property taxes that will mean millions of dollars for our city. These are new taxes that can be used to improve our quality of life for all residents. It is these beliefs and a sincere desire to benefit all residents in our community, especially our youth and our seniors, that I ask for your vote on November 4th. As a current and former council member, I have learned how government operates. I have been through many conferences and many lectures, and I've met at many lengthy council meetings. I've also poured hours into studying issues that facing our community. I'm a 52-year-old businessman who's happy and proud to say I worked my way through college, and I ask for your vote November 4th.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Thank you.
Mr. Gonzales.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Gonzales. I'm number 5 on the ballot this year. I'd like to thank all the ladies and gentlemen here tonight for attending. I'd like to thank the City Council and staff for providing this forum for us today. And I'd like to give a big thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on such a wonderful program. And I'd like to thank all of those watching at home on the small screen, and thank you very much for taking out so much of your precious time this evening to spend a few minutes with us. Once again, my name is Paul Gonzales. I'm a graduate of California State University, Long Beach. I studied political science with an emphasis on public administration. I currently work for the District Attorney's Office for a few years, and work with quite a few great people and enjoy going to work every day. I'm also currently on your Planning Commission for this fine city of Buena Park, and I'm serving my 3rd term as a Planning Commissioner here. And prior to that, I served a few years on the Traffic Commission for Buena Park. I'm a local homeowner. I live here on Pierce Circle, just south of Crescent Avenue, close to Knott's Berry Farm. I live there with my wife, Sandra, daughters Paulina and Emily. Paulina goes to Centralia Elementary and is doing quite well, and Emily will probably be going there next year. This year, I'm number 5 on the ballot. Please remember, number 5 on the ballot. I will see you all at Silverado Days, and thank you, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzales. Ms. Vaughn.
Good evening. I am Virginia Vaughn, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the city staff, our residents, and our family and friends that are here tonight, as well as the residents watching on television. I am a small business owner, and I've lived in Buena Park for 19 years with my husband, Kenny. My daughter, Tammy, and my 7 adopted grandchildren also live in Buena Park. I worked at Northrop Grumman for 30 years and retired in 2011. When it comes to our city, I believe in transportation, innovation, and collaboration. Because I care about our city and you, the citizens of our community, I want to be the solution to the problems facing our city. A few of my goals are to ensure our tax dollars are spent wisely and carefully, to carefully manage the develop and redevelopment city projects, address our pension liability, reserve fund, and support our police department. I want to attract and encourage and support new business, and of course, address the traffic congestion. I'm involved in several organizations, the West Orange County Regional Chamber of Commerce, the Buena Park Women's Club, and I sit on the boards of the Boys and Girls Club, the Giving Children Hope Board, Education Foundation, the Children's Museum, and the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. I was also selected in 2014 as Woman of the Year for the 65th District. I want to keep Buena Park's unique qualities and the sense of community while becoming a strong and more vibrant community for our future. I pledge to listen to your concerns through conversation, town hall meetings, neighborhood meetings, and I will give 110%, and I will work for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Ms. Swift?
Ask Beth Swift any question, and the answer is Buena Park. This was said jokingly by a friend of mine one time, but actually it's very true. I've lived in Buena Park my whole life, as has my husband. This is where my husband, Greg, and I met and married 44 years ago, where we raised our 4 children, where we attend church, where I worked as a high school teacher at Buena Park High School, where I volunteer in Rotary and at the California Welcome Center. Buena Park is also where I served as a school board member in the Buena Park School District for 31 years. And for the past 4 years, I've served on the Buena Park City Council, last year as mayor. When I was elected in 2010, I said I wanted Buena Park to be a family-friendly, business-welcoming, and education-oriented community in which citizens enjoy a safe, beautiful, and resource-rich environment. That's still my goal and still my dream. So I will continue to make decisions that will maintain the services that promote those ends. And I will continue to advance our city nationally, if possible, through the All-America City Award. Specifically, I will promote the use of core values to influence decisions and the behavior of city staff, commissioners, and council members. I will vote to maintain essential services like police, fire, water, sewer at high levels of professionalism and reliability. I will represent the city in a responsible manner on the Orange County Fire Authority, both on the Board of Directors and on the Budget and Finance Committee, as I'm currently doing. I will inform City Council, city staff, and others of the importance of preserving and honoring Buena Park's heritage building and urge staff to complete an inventory of historic sites and buildings and establish historic districts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Swift. We have lots of questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. We'll try to get them all in tonight. We're going to start with Mr. Knight. Please explain your position on attracting new business to the city. What are your views on development and redevelopment?
Buena Park has an excellent opportunity. We have a number of areas and properties that are just prime for bringing in entertainment venues. I have the experience in the years that I've been in entertainment and also in business finance to be able to understand which businesses are going to be the best fit. It's not a case of just bring somebody in and hope for the best. You need to have a plan as to what kind of a business is coming in, how's it going to work with the other businesses there, a situation where you have the ability to have a synergistic effect on the businesses so that you can do advertising, marketing, and merchandising for these businesses when they come in, and you're not having them all by themselves, they're kind of scrambling their own. I did a one little thing for back with CalJam 2, and that was effective in bringing in some businesses and entertainments. So,
thank you. Mr. Beeger, what will the the major construction, and I assume they're referring to the source, what will this project do for the city? And may I have your opinion, pros and cons for anyone else, including Mr. Beeger?
Well, naturally, it's going to build our tax base. It's a wonderful project, and it's a large project. It also has some concerns. When I see a sign that says that there's 5,000 jobs that are going to come to the city, I'd like to see what we're going to have as far as full-time jobs. I think we need to recognize the fact that the citizens of Buena Park need full-time jobs so they can work for their own health insurance, they can buy their own homes and raise their children. So with that, I think any projects that we do in the future, especially when we're going to use tax breaks to businesses and try to attract them, that we write into the language right away that we want full-time jobs for folks, not just part-time jobs.
Anyone else? Mr. Gonzales?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Would you like to? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, well, could you rephrase the question, please? One more time? Should we restate that?
What will the major construction project do for the city? And may I have your opinion, pro and con? And we assume they mean the source.
Oh, the source. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Yes, we've seen the, well, you can't help it, but you can't miss it because when you drive by on Orange Thornton Beach, it's right there. It's a very outstanding project. And when this came before the Planning Commission, a couple of years back, we were looking at different designs and what's going to happen and why is it going to take so long and what took so long to develop this project. This land has been vacant since Steve and I first ran for council and even before that, and we always wondered what was going to happen to it. And we've seen a few developers come into town and with different proposals, and finally the economy took hold, and we developed a really great idea for Buena Park to capture the regional dollars that are available here. And those are tax dollars available to this city that's going to make a tremendous change in the way we do business here in the city. The Source is a great project. I can't wait to see it soon, coming up this coming summer. And please come on down and spend your dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Salehi?
Yes. I'd like to address actually two issues. I'm going to merge those two questions into one answer. First of all, regarding the development, it's fascinating because over the last, or close to the last decade, we've had all these empty lots that are just sitting here. I know that different people have said that they're pro-building it. In addition to being a biotechnologist, I also am a senior vice president to a development company called Maryland Estates. We usually work with apartment complexes nationally and internationally. Well, one of my partners came a few years ago, and we wanted to grab the Movie Land Wax Museum area and build a very big hotel, one that you can have a mountain inside of and ski down. This actually went before people here at staff, and it was shot down because it just didn't seem like it was appropriate. So now it just sits empty. The sign is there. We turn it off. We wouldn't want it on. And there's all this opportunity that we're not moving for. The one thing that I do want to later on talk about is now that the Source is here and we have all this area between Knott's and the Source, one thing that we need to talk about is the Stanton Avenue extension, which I'll address next time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Better
Mr.
try
Berry?
I get 1 minute. That's going to be tough. Specifically with the Source, pros and cons, I think that's your question. There are some issues with additional traffic and noise and things like that. However, when the city looked at that and evaluated that project individually, because it's so close to both freeways, the 5 and the 91 crossing here at the center of the Southland, we felt that it was going to impact minimally the outlying areas and the major residential areas within the community, because people, as Paul has said, the regional shopping dollars, if people want to come to the Source, they can drive into town, they can get off one of the major off-ramps at Beach Boulevard, get into the Source without causing a lot of congestion throughout the whole community. And so that was kind of the idea behind it. Looking at that, not just the regional dollars that are going to be producing sales tax, which would be potentially millions of dollars, also there's millions of dollars in property tax, which would benefit the community as well. So that's on the pro side, that we get additional revenue, as well as providing us with some unique shopping experiences, which we do not have currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Mr. Slahi, and then we'd like to hear from all of you on this one. Knowing that almost 900 residents of the Bellhurst Los Coyotes community signed a petition over 6 months ago against building any condos at the country club, and 255 club members also signed that they did not want the condos on their golf course, if elected, what would be your position on this project?
Excellent. First of all, I'd like to say that I also signed this petition. I'm a big believer in direct democracy. I have been for a very long time. I've developed a technology called Voteris that I hope eventually everyone will catch on to. I believe that people should be able to interact with their government and be able to give their opinion at all times. Should you be passionate about an issue, election day shouldn't be once every couple of years. It should be every day. And the people that we are paying to be up here should be listening to you and not to the special interests. That's something that is very near and dear to my heart. Regarding specifically this issue, it's something that right now is a concept. And it's fascinating that people have formed an opinion. I can't support something that's a concept. If we don't know the direct implications and we don't have a physical plan, then we don't know whether it's detrimental or beneficial, so we cannot support it. It doesn't make sense. But the one thing that is going to happen, and it is written on the city master plan, is the Stanton Avenue extension. They're going to build a road, and I have the map here, straight into the country club area, bringing 25,000 additional cars daily, where this project's only talking about anywhere between 900 to 1,400. This is something very real, and I want you to be aware of it.
Thank you. Let's start with Ms. Swift.
Could you rephrase the question? Now I'm reacting to what he has just said.
I don't want to rephrase it. I'll read it the way it was written.
Yes,
Please.
say it again.
Right.
Thank you.
Knowing that almost 900 residents of the Bellhurst Los Coyotes community signed a petition over 6 months ago against building any condos at the club, and 255 club members also signed that they did not want these condos on the course. If elected, what would be your position on the project?
My position on the project will happen when I see what the project actually will be. There's been a proposal. The initial proposal has been cut way back. The current proposal, I think, needs to be cut back further. The initiative that's being circulated talks about open space. The proposal of the owners of Los Coyotes Country Club is not talking about doing something to open space. They're talking about doing something where some ramshackle buildings are and some rarely used tennis courts. And so I want private property to be allowed to be developed if it fits and if it's not detrimental to the neighborhood. And that's the area of controversy right now. And so we have to see what the final proposal will be.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, would you care to answer?
Sure. I've heard a lot of things on both sides, and at this time, and even after elected, I would then have the opportunity to do the study. But without actually seeing the facts before me, the drawings and the actual plans, I could not make a decision at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzales.
Yeah, I'd like to reserve an opinion for that after I see the proposal. You know, I have the keen eye of being on a planning commission for this fine city, and all projects, our major projects, development projects come through us. And we actually haven't seen a formal proposal yet, but we've heard about it, and it's been almost on the agenda and then pulled back and changed and abridged. And I'd like to see what's presented to us before I make a decision on this issue.
Thank you. Mr. Berry?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, as seated council members and a planning commissioner, we're actually precluded by law to take an opinion prior to the actual public hearing on this item. We get criticized on a regular basis from the general public that states that we've already made it. Why go before the city council? They've already made up their minds. By law, we're not allowed to state what our opinion is. We're not allowed to put it in writing. We're supposed to keep our minds open and open to all the facts and have it come to us when it gets presented to us and considered at that point. However, I've been on city council for a number of years, and I have met with the owners of the country club at many times in the past, and each of those times, in previous presentations, I have declined from accepting what they are presenting. It needed to be adjusted, it needed to be modified, and it was just something that I have said no and no and no and no year after year. We recently had an issue at the south end of town where we had somewhat of a similar situation with a park, and the city council listened to the residents and voted to rescind that idea.
Mr. Ferguson.
I too haven't seen the project, and I haven't really got a chance to meet with the residents. A couple meetings back, study session meetings, it was brought up that there's already bad traffic in that area. So that would make me really think to study the project further. I think what we need to do is, instead of starting with a large number of condos, maybe we need to start with 0 and work our way up instead of big and down. Thank you.
Mr. Beeger, you have a comment?
Yes. I too haven't seen the project, and it sounds to me that we're a long ways off from having the end of that project. I'd like to see what the environmental impact report will be in that area. I'd also like to hear from the police department for the traffic safety in that area. There's already quite a bit of traffic there. And I also do want to hear from 900 citizens. I realize that they moved next door to a golf course and not next door to a condominium complex. So with that, I think there has to be a lot more discussion. When elected, I'd like to have that opportunity to speak with all those residents. 900 people is quite a voice.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Yes, the environmental impact report just came out, and it's about 4 inches thick. And I have a philosophy that you read everything before you do anything. So not having been able to read that yet, the proposals are going to be changed because there's a 60-day period. So what is being proposed today probably won't be what's going to be the end result 60 days from now. So to make a decision now, okay, I think would be actually foolish to do because you don't have all the information. And most things are based on supposition and not information.
Thank you. I think for this question, we can have a show of hands because it's for all of you, and it says, who is being endorsed by the Police Association? Anybody?
They haven't endorsed anybody.
No, they have not endorsed anyone yet.
Might
Thank
be a
you.
secret, though.
They haven't even had the meetings.
Okay, thank you. This is for everyone, so maybe we'll start with Ms. Swift. Why should cash-strapped Buena Park provide council members with over $700 monthly medical insurance, plus spouse insurance, plus continuing medical coverage even after council retirement? Comment on that.
Well, I will comment that I don't think it should happen after retirement, but there's some rules in state law that allows cities to do exactly what you have stated. I was on the school board for many years, and one time I called the County Department of Ed just because I thought, how can school board members get health insurance for their families? And it was explained to me that board members, and I think similar to council members, are considered full-time employees. And I'll tell you, when you're doing this job, it feels pretty full-time. So that is why. But individual council members can choose not to take it.
Anyone else care to question? Mr. Gonzales?
Yeah. It's about medical insurance provided to council members, right? Well, I think that some municipalities are required to provide medical insurance, and I know some people that are thinking about running for council positions in other cities just to obtain that wonderful medical insurance program. For me, I'm a county employee. I work for the district attorney's office, and I have a tremendous medical program, and thank goodness for it. It's one of the greatest benefits that a municipal agency can provide. And about the retirement medical insurance, what's the lifespan of a council person after they retire from city council? there's lots of variables involved in deciding whether or not a person's going to need medical insurance or whether or not it's tremendous cost involved to the city. And I'd like to see the numbers first and evaluate that before I make a position on that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Slahi?
Yes, it's fascinating. You have to look at motivation and demand. The demand for that insurance is high, and it's not necessarily the fault of the rules and regulations that make it available. It's the fault of a system that is inefficient and corrupt. I've been working on a new technology. I'm a solutions guy. I just don't like to complain about things. I like to do things. And I've created a new technology called ServeMD. I think it's going to be fascinating. It should be available on your mobile phone for Android and Apple in 2016, actually around this time, where it will fill the void left with Obamacare in this scenario, so that the open appointment slots that the doctors have where they're not doing anything can then be matched with the demand from the patient, who is then banned from seeing a certain kind of specialist or MD because of the insurance that they may or may not have. Then you can connect these two people together, and one person can then give services when they're not doing anything else whatsoever. So you actually end up creating a perfect circuit with a free market economy.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll go to the next question.
No, I just, if I'm elected, I simply will just waive the health insurance.
Yes, having health insurance or either before or during, or rather after or during a council member's term, that's a personal decision. I think that things of that nature should be left up to the individual council member, and the voters can decide whether or not it's an important issue. Myself, I don't believe that I should have health insurance after I'm off the council, and I would not take it while I'm on the council.
Thank you.
Can you
Mr.
repeat
Berry?
the question?
I'm sorry?
Repeat the question, please, because there was a middle part in there I didn't quite get.
Why should cash-strapped Buena Park provide council members with over $700 monthly medical insurance, plus spouse insurance, plus continuing medical coverage even after retirement?
Okay, can I take a stab at this one? Try to do it in a minute, I guess. I don't know if I can or not. I think that there's some semantics that need to be cleared up in there. I'm not sure. It's not health insurance that we're receiving. We're receiving a monetary supplement of $700 per month. If you have insurance at some other agency, or you work for another government agency, or you're retired and you're receiving government benefits that are health related, you can basically say, I don't want that health service provided to me. I'll take the $700 and put it in my pocket instead. That's perfectly fine. I have no problem with that. The $700 that I think the council receives, as far as I understand, is not health insurance. It's actually a subsidized amount towards health insurance if we choose to use the health insurance. If we sign up, I still pay, as far as I understand, about $700 of my $1,000 a month stipend goes into the balance due on my health insurance every month. So I think I'm really paying for most of it, if not at least half of it. And there's no spouse that's getting any payment as far as I go. It's just compensation. So, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. And this is for everyone, so we'll start with Ms. Vaughn.
Okay.
If the current financial crisis was to worsen, would you, 1, cut services, or 2, ask the voters to raise taxes and fees?
Well, I'd have to look at all the services and what we're doing and along with the commissions and where the money is going. You have to evaluate all of the services and the value to the city and what the impact would be on our city. The last thing I'd want to do is to raise any taxes or fees.
Anyone else care to answer this one? Mr. Gonzales?
Yeah, that was, wasn't written by an optimist, was it? They're actually, let's say we're cash strapped. Okay. Most of there's a good number of cities that actually aren't in the red anymore. They're in Orange County. They're in the black, and they're almost there if they're still in the red. And I have a feeling that the way our economy is going, it's just rolling right along, and we're going to be on top of things and nothing flat, and we'll be back with a surplus and pay our bills and not worry about it and run fully staffed in less than a couple of years. I hope so. Let's keep that optimistic attitude, though.
Thank you. Ms. Swift?
You know, being on the council these last 4 years, it's been some tough 4 years, and our employees have been helpful in making concessions to the city. And one of the concessions they made was to take furlough days. So they had a day off. That can be nice, but they didn't get paid for that day off. So it affected them to about 5% of their salary. If we have to go through another recession, and business cycles do repeat, and so there's one coming up if we're not in one right now in a few years. But we would have to talk to the employees groups again. Hopefully they would help us out and make concessions. And when employees aren't working, yes, services are not happening because we are a service-oriented business here. And as much as you don't want to ever have to lay off people, we did have to lay off a few this past recession. And hopefully we don't have to do that again. Thank you.
Mr. Berry.
I'll just pick up where she left off. We did lay off a few, but we didn't lay off many. They took an earlier retirement than they anticipated. They all qualified for a full retirement. They were just sticking around because they either enjoyed working or didn't want to leave the city family. We basically motivated them to go ahead and take a full retirement, which they did. We didn't really lay people off. No new taxes, no new fees. Absolutely, I've held the line for the last 4 years. I did not vote for any increases at once in the last 4 years. I will not for the next 4 years. I do not intend to raise fees. I do not intend to raise any taxes or implement new taxes or fees. The city is raising plenty of cash. We have plenty of money. We're able to operate from year to year. We're using stored money. We're using reserves. We started with about 20 million. We're down to about, I think, 12 or so right now. Getting down to about 9 was going to be a little scary. We might actually be closer to that number now that I think about it. But we are actually operating at break even probably about today, which means hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we will be in the black. We will be in positive and have some more money available for the following year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leahy?
Yes, hi. One of the things that's fascinating to me is when we're looking at a broken economy, we seem to always be passing the buck everywhere else and saying it's not our fault, it's the fault of our circumstances and our surrounding. This symptom, the symptomology of our problem, can be found in multiple areas, especially throughout the state. One of them is the RDA situation that we had. Our city, with not too much exception from other cities, went out and at premium prices purchased large lots for these grand ideal plans that we had, and now we're stuck with them. And much like a stock market, you hold on to a losing stock, and until you sell it, you still technically haven't lost anything. We call that an unrealized loss. But the guy who votes and sells it, or rents it, or leases it, or does a TOT deferment on it, actually has to take the hit and say, look, we made a bad investment, and now it's a realized loss. You have a beautiful tree here in Buena Park. It has its own fruit, but it's been mismanaged. We're running a deficit. We had a multi-million-dollar savings, and now it's nearly depleted. These are the facts, and this is what we need to work on to make a better Buena Park.
Thank you. Anyone else care? Mr. Ferguson?
I'd like to echo Mr. Gonzales's point. I think we're on that, rather than look at it that another one's coming right away. We have a great project that's going on that's going to bring tax dollars in. I see everything that's coming to Buena Park. We're going to be able to get back into our reserves and be back where we should be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
If the current financial crisis was to worsen, would you cut services or ask the voters to raise taxes and fees?
Well, I think we're all against raising taxes and fees. I think we have too much of that. In cutting city services, that's where we need to be creative. You know, the former position I had, we were looking at 175 layoffs, and we came down to having about 8 that were laid off. There's just different ways that we can work together. Having employees do maybe more than one task. But when we furlough an employee, we just lost a city service. We can't look to that again. We have to maintain our city services to our citizens.
I look at it as a rhetorical question. The city council and the city of Buena Park went through this. They didn't raise fees. They didn't raise taxes. and they cut services, outsourced, or attempted to do things of that nature. So I think that would just continue. For me, the only time to raise taxes is never.
Thank you. This question is particularly for Mr. Berry and Ms. Swift, however anyone else can answer. Why did the council finally reject the Larwin Park swap after so many months of adamant approval? Ms. Swift?
Well, I think there was such an outcry that of the residents surrounding the park. I was disappointed in a lot of ways because the almost 10 acres of Dickerson School could have made a really beautiful park. We could have invested a lot of money. That area is called the Brentwood area. I thought, why don't we put a beautiful monument sign in the park, make it look like Brentwood, if you know what Brentwood looks like. There's HUD dollars that can be used for people to enhance the beauty of their own homes. And I thought that would be a great way to target that whole area and improve the look, because there's some houses that look like they need a little help there. But that is not what the people wanted. So now we have to do the best we can do with Larwin Park, but there's many improvements we can do with Larwin Park.
Thank you. Mr. Berry?
Thank you. The question, I think, asked for after so many months of adamant approval, and I don't know that we had adamant approval. It may have seemed that way. It wasn't from our perspective. Again, this is very similar to the other issue with the condos at the north end of town. We had an applicant who came forward, and that would be the school board, who had a school site for sale. They were working with a developer to develop some apartments. There was going to be a land swap, and we were going to gain a good park, which is a project that was alluded to. Unfortunately, in the process of going through that project and getting it moving forward, the residents in that area said absolutely not. After we had gone through this and got to about a 3-month maybe project of moving forward, we decided that there were enough resentment from the residents. We listened. We came to another meeting. We voted no, stop, move on to another project.
Thank you. Would anyone else? Mr. Gonzales?
Yes, I remember this project that came before the Planning Commission a while back, and we had to talk to a few residents, and it wasn't all that many that showed up, but the few residents that did show up were very outspoken about against the project and development, and they wanted to retain the park in its existence as a, well, the park actually is a little bit of a low crime area. We have problems in this park, and what it entails is that there are areas of the park that are unseen from the road, and you got to get out of the car and patrol within the park. And so we thought, well, a larger park, let's spend some money, a little bit of money, and we'd benefit greatly from a new park. But the residents are the ones that really turned us against this project.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment? Mr. Slay?
Yeah, so I think this is a great testament, as you've seen here from the conversations with the 2 city council members, that when the people want to stop something and they put their mind to it, even though it's not an election time, they can come and they can voice their opinion, and their voice of the majority will be heard. This is the beautiful part about America, is that there's one person, one vote, and we can make a difference. Currently, we have a project on the books, and this is the one that I'm talking about, in that area where it deserves that kind of attention. The Stanton Avenue extension, now that the source is being built, is more viable than ever. And it's something that we all need to come look at and rise as a community and discuss. And one thing about the monument sign that she had mentioned, it would have to be up to code, because the sign codes are very, very restrictive. Even Soak City, not Spray Farm, doesn't even have a sign. It's a big banner. So I'm not sure exactly what kind of sign it would be. But I do look forward to that kind of spirit, so that we can actually bring in that tourism and that vibrance again to Buena Park.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to the next question. This is for everyone, so we'll start with Mr. Gonzales. Since Buena Park is the 11th fastest growing city in the nation, and since it is landlocked and has no further room for expansion, Isn't it time that the city put a moratorium on building and expansion before the city strangles itself? Mr. Gonzales, we'll go with you first.
Well, the two suppositions you presented to me on one question are fighting against each other. Yeah, you're right. Buena Park is a fast-growing city, but there are other cities where the population is exploding also, and they have restraints and landlocked areas and not much room to build. But here in Buena Park, I've seen on the Planning Commission, we take the available space we have, and builders are good at this. They just love going vertical, so you put more people in a smaller area, and that increases the availability of housing for our population, for our growing population. But you're right, there's a ceiling to how much Buena Park can accommodate, and we're almost to that point.
All right, Ms. Swift.
It is a fast-growing city. I didn't realize it was the 11th until I saw that in the newspaper. At our last council meeting, I believe, is when I made the statement that we're getting so many of these townhouse projects, 3-story townhouse projects, so we're cramming more and more people in a small. And at least it's home ownership. I think it's important for home ownership because you tend to take better care of something you own. And the trouble is it's squeezing more and more people in a small amount of land. And so I said, I think we need to do what some other cities have done and start talking about single-family homes. Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn, would you care to comment? All right. Mr. Slahi?
Yes. You know, it's fascinating that we're talking about growing because, you know, up until your post-pubescent time, you're growing this way, and at some point you start to grow this way and this way. It's important to see how we're growing. We should be growing the same way proportionally economically as we are in comparison to population. When population expands and economy declines, as was the case a couple of years ago, great people, great families, middle-class families who've lost their home, who've declared bankruptcy, who have no credit, start to go other places. For example, these motels. One particular case, multiple cases, is that our family has these laws that we have to follow, these ordinances, and it's only in the city of Buena Park that we know of, where the families can't stay for more than 60 days, and they still have to leave one day. Multiple times we've been forced to kick good families with kids to the curb because of this law. So when the population expands, you start to see things like this happen. Laws are made to evolve, and that is the psychology we need to have as a city.
Thank you. Anyone else care to comment on this question? Mr. Beeger?
Well, we still have a little bit of room to grow, and I think we should take advantage of that. But you have to remember, too, when we go higher and higher, well, we also want to make sure that we have adequate parking and adequate room for these people, for people to live in these places. You know, too often than not, I've seen too many projects here in the city being built, and it's forced traffic and vehicular traffic and foot traffic into the neighborhoods. So I think any more development, we need to take a good look at that. And this is all the more time to start revitalizing our neighborhoods. We'll come to a point where the land will be used. So that'll be the time when we need to start revitalizing our neighborhoods. We're going to start spending our efforts there. There's some rebuilding to be done.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to the next question. Mr. Ferguson, what do you see as the #1 challenge facing the Buena Park City Council over the next 2 years, and how would you personally address the issue?
The #1, sorry, forgot to turn it on again. The #1 challenge is probably going to be the growth of the city through the Source Project and Beach Boulevard, looking at what businesses come in and what it does for the city as far as occupancy to these locations. And if elected, I plan to help lobby to make sure we get good businesses with good jobs and hoping we can help bring the occupants that we need to the Source project and the projects on Beach Boulevard.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
There are many challenges for Buena Park in the coming years. I don't have any one of them. And traffic, population explosion, expansion, moratoriums. That's something that I think as a council member, I can work with the other council members and prioritize what the challenges are so that we can address them in the order that of what's considered to be the most pressing at the particular time.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Well, I would have to look at it at the long-range plan and the general plan and to see what the overall scope of work would be and then to determine what we would do. I don't see a major problem facing the city, but there are issues with traffic and growth. And we'd have to do the smart thing and just watch the plan and make sure when we approve projects that we do and we consider the residents, the traffic, and the housing as well.
Thank you. Mr. Beeger?
Raise the question, or restate the question.
What do you see as the #1 challenge facing the Buena Park City Council over the next 2 years, and how would you personally address the issue?
Well, first of all, I think we're still in a little bit of a recovery mode. We need to make sure that we're looking forward and not making the same mistakes we made before that got us into the position of falling into the recession. I think that'll be #1. Outside of that, I think Buena Park has all the possibilities in the world. I don't think there's going to be any major problems in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzales?
Yes. The #1 issue for our city is always, and will always be forever and ever, is public safety. That never changes. Although it may be challenging to us, tax dollars, budget increases, traffic, just goes along. But our #1 concern is always public safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming right along with public safety and paying for the services by hiring people in the city is the pensions and the unfunded liability. And with the change in CalPERS rate and with their changing the longevity, we're going to be facing higher unfunded pension liabilities. And so we need to start putting away some money towards that or paying it down, making a plan to pay it down. I'm on the Orange County Fire Authority Budget and Finance Committee. And what was presented to us a while back was a 16-year plan to pay down the unfunded liability. I think we need to take a lesson from OCFA and address our unfunded pensions.
Thank you. Mr. Slahy?
Oh, excellent. Hi. One thing that I find fascinating to be the main issue is not necessarily public safety, it's the economy. The economy is the #1 thing. It's always about jobs. We have to look to see how we can create more jobs and more economic sustainability. I'll give you a great example. Areas of Long Beach along the coast, especially this Pike area, has been developed. That area was a very dangerous area a while ago. But as the economy grew, so did the city services for that area. And now they're prospering. Your #1 thing is always the economy. It's not any other service. Our main economy here has been initially tourism. We have factories. We have people who are bringing in their money. And if you always watch these city council things, they always say, eat and spend your money in Buena Park. Well, that's what we want. But we want to make sure when we're investing in this city, there's a return on our investment later. That's what we need to look for as citizens of this great city. And that's what I want to work with you on in developing as the #1 issue in the next couple of years. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Berry?
Thank you. About 10 years ago, the former city council at the time took on a strategy of buying 50s era, 60s era motels along Beach Boulevard, reinvesting in our community, buying those establishments that were high calls for service for our police department and not necessarily providing a great service to the community. We bought those on the open market, we scraped those, and we now are making those properties available to investors to come in. We have 4 hotel projects that are in the works. We have 3 large restaurants. We have 2 additional entertainment venues along Beach Boulevard. Most of these are going to all happen and be signed contracts within the next year or 2, and hopefully we'll see the fruit of our, the results of our labor very soon, within the next year or 2. I honestly want to be here for that because I helped start that a few years ago. Art Brown, who's in the audience, Fred Smith, some of the other council members, along with Council Member Swift, we've all participated, made it a major priority year after year, enhancing the services along Beach Boulevard, and I'd like to see that continue.
Thank you very much. Next question for everyone. It appears that if something the council has to vote on is controversial, the members discuss it in a study session and bring it up very many weeks later. Please comment on this practice. And why don't we start with Mr. Knight?
Well, that's a good process. The city council is not allowed to discuss something that has to do with the city among themselves unless it's an open session. And having a study session to evaluate and have staff reports, have personal experiences and knowledge of the council members there to participate, you're going to come to a good decision.
Thank you, Mr. Beeger.
First of all, the study sessions are for council to get the facts, the basic facts of whatever the situation may be. And some of those things may or may not be able to be discussed in public, especially if it has to do with something that's a legality. But it's also important that council takes the time to have the input of the citizens before they make any type of a decision. And transparency, I think, is what we're getting at here. And I think transparency is the utmost key. If the citizens of Buena Park don't know what's being talked about, and decisions are made without them having an opportunity to speak or be informed, so they can make their own decision, that's where the transparency is important.
Thank you, Mr. Slahy.
Yeah, it is a good process with a caveat. The caveat is that eventually it needs to get somewhere. Eventually that concept needs to be agendized. Just 1 second, let me finish. That needs to be agendized. One example is this issue that I was talking about earlier regarding the homeless issue. When we were forced to put some people on the street, we brought them here to the council. We said, look, these people are about to become homeless, do something. To this day, I'm still waiting. I'm looking at some council members to have this issue agendized to review the law. It still hasn't happened. So I want to see progress. I love community interaction. There should be bilateral communication, but at the behest and not at the loss of objectivity for the project at hand. We cannot lose sight, and we need to take every single issue for the value that it's worth and see it through.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
It is a good process, and the city council is following the law, so there's really no other answer except they're following the law, and the meeting is open to the public.
Thank you, Mr. Berry.
Yeah, we do receive a lot of criticism quite often. People do approach us in public and after meetings and before meetings and say, well, why do you do this and why do you do that? It is mostly because we're trying to protect ourselves from lawsuits, because we are following common law, and again, it was alluded to earlier. We have televised meetings here, and I call that the show, because that's when we get everything on the agenda and we vote in public. We were obligated to do that by state law. But as if we had a subcommittee to go out and study an issue, we all meet in another room, and everybody's invited to join us in that room. It's just not a televised meeting. It's kind of we roll up our shirt sleeves, we negotiate, we call each other names sometimes, but we come to a common consensus and we work out the details, and then we bring it back here a couple weeks later and we discuss it again in open. We are cordial and nice, we wear ties, and we're polite, and we open it up to the public so everybody can join in the communications.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzales.
Yes, I think that if someone were to say a closed session, then it's a little different, but these are open meetings, and the public is always welcome to an open meeting. But since I referred to those closed sessions are labor relations contracts, personnel issues that only the staff and council are allowed to participate in, but those issues are, other than that, the knowledge that you attain from these sometimes long study sessions gives you the tools to make better decisions for the residents of our city.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Could you repeat the question, please?
It appears that if the council has to vote on controversial items, the members discuss it in a study session and bring it up weeks later. Please comment.
It's my understanding that the study session, and I attend them on twice a month, they're open to the public. I don't know the procedure and how long they have to put it on the agenda, but usually during the study session, they will state it goes on the next agenda or put it on the calendar for a certain date. So again, that is open to the public and it's put on there. Now, whether it's translated verbatim from the study session onto the agenda so that the residents understand it, that could be an issue.
Thank you. Ms. Swift?
The word controversial was added to the question, and it's not necessarily a controversial issue that is discussed in study session. We've discussed some pretty mundane things in those sessions too. Truthfully, I'd rather have the whole council meeting right out here. I don't see really the need to go down the hallway to a smaller room. I think in the transition to that smaller room, some people decide to leave, and I think it is important for people to hear. And I've been surprised at how many people actually watch Channel 3 and hear our discussions. Truth be told, I rarely did that myself before I was on the council. But it's a process. It's on the agenda. You're welcome to come. It's not controversial issues. It's everything, usually a first look at that item. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll start back down this end again, Mr. Knight. This is for everyone. There is an initiative being circulated in the city to preserve open space and parks from being repurposed for condos and apartments. How do you feel about allowing developers exceptions to land use rules that individual homeowners have to abide by?
Well, to a certain extent, it politicizes the redevelopment. I don't favor restricting the council members from being able to openly debate and look and find out exactly where development should be. That's why they're elected. And to have all open land use subject to vote of the people in the cities that it's been in, redevelopment and development is basically stopped. And so you can have, by petitioning, by voting for the members of the council, that is the way that I think you should be able to determine how the land is going to be used, okay, regarding open space.
Thank you. Mr. Beeger?
Could you restate the question? You said something about parks?
The question is, there is an initiative being circulated in the city to preserve open space and parks from being repurposed for condos and apartments. How do you feel about allowing developers exceptions to land use rules that individual homeowners have to abide by?
Well, I don't think there should be an exception. I think we do need to reserve those open spaces and parks. They should not be repurposed under any reason.
Thank you. Mr. Slahy?
The core of the question revolves around the fact that a petition is being circulated. It's not up to me as a city council member to react to the petition. It's up to the voting population to react to the petition. The petition system is an excellent system. It brings the power of democracy to the people, even when it's not an election. During a special election, one is opened up and the people can actually get involved and talk about something that's on their mind. That's up for the people to decide, and that vote is visceral at that point. I think it's an excellent thing for petitions to go around. If the people are very adamant about an issue, they should have the opportunity to voice their opinion. And it's something that I will always strongly support.
Thank you. Mr. Ferguson?
I'm just going to echo Mr. Beeger's statement. I'm not for getting rid of parks or open space at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Berry?
Yeah, I don't think anybody is for getting rid of current parks or open space for condos, other than the project at the north end of town, which is the golf course, and the applicant selling off part of the golf course for additional residential spaces. They're linked indirectly. However, I would support preserving open space and parks, obviously, within the community. I don't think that the city council would be short-sighted enough to somehow prevent that, but we actually are approached by developments every day, and not every day, but on a regular basis, and we commonly hold the developers to providing a certain amount of open space within those developments to make sure that children have places to play and people can walk their dogs, and I mean, it's something that we deal with on a regular basis. So whether or not I support it for an initiative, it's going to be kind of expensive for the community. If we do go to a ballot, the city will have to pay for that ballot measure, and I'm not sure if I'll support that or not.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzales?
So, well, if you have an initiative, it has to have a single goal. Usually, if it has more than 1 or 2 points, then it's going to lose its effectiveness. And your question revolves around two issues. One item is open spaces, another item is parks. As presented to us before by members of our candidates here, no one in the city would like to get rid of parks. Actually, we love parks. We'd like to have as many parks as possible. And the issue about concerning open space, well, open space could be a private property, or it could be a city or redevelopment agency-owned property. So there's two different issues about and approaches about how you go about dealing with open space rules in effect. It could be something we have limited control over, and it could be something we have tremendous control over. And also, depending on if it's private property, the citizens can also tell us how we go about our decision-making in that issue.
Thank you. Ms. Vaughn?
Well, I think the overall initiative, I kind of mirror what Paul is saying here. You know, you need to look at it for all open spaces. Parks, we all agree that we don't want to touch our parks, but open spaces need to be defined. And there's private open space, and then there's city-owned. And I think as elected officials, that is our job, would be our job, to look at the plan and do what's best for the entire city, not for one group of people, but we have, as elected officials, to look at the entire city and what are the benefits, how do they weigh out in the overall picture.
Ms. Swift?
In the two controversies that I'm thinking of, in the south end of town and the north end of town, that have to do with parks or open spaces, I think part of the irritation of the people and the hard feelings could have been prevented had city staff and or developers, probably the two working together, communicated much earlier. I'm facing a project, the one I can't name because there's city council members here and I don't want to influence anybody, because that's a no-no for me. I can't influence because of the state conflict of interest laws. But had, in my case, had we been told earlier about the project, had we had input, and the same in those two instances, and got community input first, say this is what's being discussed, and we'd like to present some ideas, and then hear early rather than later when everybody's upset at the drastic thing that might happen. And the drastic thing did happen to me. Thank you.
We have to stop at 7:45 so that all of you can have your closing statements. So we're just going to try and get 1 or 2 more questions in. We'll start with Mr. Beeger on this one. Since Silverado Days is a city event, do you think campaigning for public office should be allowed at the event?
Actually, no, I don't. I think that's a place for us to take our families and to enjoy the history of the city.
Mr. Salehi?
Yeah, I strongly disagree with that. I think that it's a public park, it's a public event. America is founded on being able to have freedom of speech. If anything, I think this is somewhat unconstitutional, to be able to come and say, oh, I'm just taking over this. I'm commandeering a park, and you can't do something just because I tell you not to. It's un-American.
Mr. Ferguson.
We have enough time to get out there and try to meet as many of you as possible, and I hope you all enjoy Silverado Days. I hope I can meet you on your front porch. Thank you.
Mr. Berry.
Yeah, there is somewhat of an unwritten rule, I think, somewhere that says, you know, keep the signs at home, keep the campaign literature at home, come out and enjoy the park and the festivities. Somewhat of a history in our community, and I don't want to violate or break that. I would upset a lot of people. It's very similar to the issue when the state of California changed the no smoking indoor law. We had an Elks Lodge in town that seemed to want to continue to smoke indoor and enjoy their smoking variety, and the state of California showed up and said, we have to enforce that, send police over there and arrest those people, and we found it convenient to kind of walk out of the building and not enforce it.
Mr. Gonzales.
Yeah, actually, you found one issue I agree with Mr. Salehigh, is that we should be allowed to campaign, but not a full-fledged production. If you want to rent a booth or something like that, call up the agency involved and tell them you want to rent a booth. But actually, the timing is a little bit off, so it becomes a non-issue for us anyway, because most of the people that are residents here in Buena Park and other locales usually do a ballot by mail now, and so that's actually going to be submitted by the 17th or 18th, so it won't be an issue anyway.
Ms. Vaughn.
I think it's just kind of an intelligent thing, that when you go to a place for your family and to have a picnic and enjoy the rides and what's going on, it's not a time for politics. It's neither in either park, where it's concert at the park, Silverado, or anything else. There's a time and a place for politics, and try and get out and knock on doors if you want everybody to know who you are. Thank you.
Ms. Swift.
I think we should rent booths to the candidates and make a little money off of them. There you And then the people that come can choose whether to walk by those booths or not. If they want to just do the rides, do the rides. But that would give them a face. They could see us all lined up. They could get information from all at one time and say, well, this person said this. What do you say about it? I think it'd be fabulous to rent booths to everybody, charge them double.
Mr. Knight.
No, I don't think there should be candidates vying for votes at Silverado Days, even renting them a booth, because what happens is that they don't stay in the booth, and their people don't stay in the booth. So you'll have them out there with people trying to enjoy Silverado Days. And for me, it becomes more of a thing like the candidate is sort of watching out for themselves, and they think they're more important than the people, so that they must get their message out. Okay, so I think that Silverado Day should be left for the people of Buena Park and the visitors to enjoy themselves and not have to worry about somebody coming up and sticking a pin or a brochure in their face.
All right, one more question, and then we'll have closing statements, and maybe we'll start with Ms. Vaughn on this one. What are your feelings regarding multifamily homes versus single-family homes?
Are we talking apartments?
I'm reading what the person has written. I would assume that is
Okay.
part of it.
I'm going to say I'm not real excited about apartments, if that's what we're calling multifamily homes. Single-family homes are real important. I think ownership of homes, if we can keep them where they're cost-effective for the people working in the city, that it's a good thing to have. I'd much rather have single-family homes than apartment complexes. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzales.
Let's try to take it from two different directions. Yeah, you're right, Virginia. There's a plus to having single-family homes and trying to restrict your population to single-family homes. But your residents need a place to live. If they can't afford to own a house at this point in time, Maybe they need a temporary place for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, even longer, or even shorter. They need to have something available for them to live. So apartments are okay. Although, we have a lot of apartments here in Buena Park, and we actually approved one on Knott Avenue not so long ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful apartment complex. It's gorgeous. And, but we'd prefer to have single-family homes in this place. But let's say if you have multi-family homes, I think the question is pointing to multiple families in single homes. Well, yeah, there will be multiple families in single homes. That creates a parking problem with our city, actually, where you have multiple families in a single residency. But our population boom just doesn't give us a chance to deal with issues like that. And there's no laws or something that stop for multi-families from living in a single home.
Mr. Berry.
Well, you need a little bit of both. You need a good mix. We have a great transition happening in our community. We have a lot of senior citizens who are looking, they call me every once in a while and say, hey, buy my house. I want to buy a condo. I want to move. I want to live somewhere else. But they want to have some flexibility. If you're talking about serving that segment of our population, multifamily would work for them. If you have lower income families who are trying to find a way to buy versus rent, and they're able to afford a condominium versus a single-family home, I would very much like to see that they can afford to buy that multifamily unit and move into it and be a proud owner in our city. The overall control here is set by zoning, which the city sets. It doesn't change from year to year in theory, and we have to be very careful of how we assess those. I wouldn't be in support of changing any of the single-family residential uses that are currently zoned that way to multifamily, but making multifamily available is important for our future.
Mr. Ferguson.
Boy, they've all had great answers. You have to look at the property and the zoning and the planning of the city in order to figure out where you're going to put it. I'm not for apartments. If there's a property where condos could go in that didn't cause a problem, maybe we could look at that. Sometimes it's good for young adults when they want to buy a home to get into a condo rather than an apartment or rather than a house. I know I struggled to get my first house, and my first house happens to be this one in Buena Park. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slade?
The government should not be in the position to choose free market winners and losers. This is the situation that we've been looking at over the last decade that has essentially instigated this economic downfall. We have zoning, and within those zonings, we have the ability to offer certain construction permits. But within that confine, should a group come or a development group come and say, look, we want this place for this purpose, and the demand is there, and you see the evolution of your society moving in that direction, then you move forward with that vision, and you assess your supply with the demand. That's the only thing that makes any form of logical sense.
Thank you. Mr. Beeger?
Well, I believe that there does need to be a balance between the two, and we definitely need to recognize the zoning. We don't need to build condominiums and apartment buildings right next to single-family neighborhoods. In the right place, that's fine to have a multi-family structure. But when it comes closer to the neighborhoods, I say we stick with the single-family homes. That is the ultimate goal and the dream of all of us, I think, in Buena Park.
Thank you. Mr. Knight?
Yeah, I do favor to having single-family homes, but as a homeowner, I guess I have to say that, but I've lived half my life in apartments. So I do think there needs to be a mix and a balance, and hopefully that we can get the economy going so that we can have more people can afford to buy single-family homes and buy condos, because ownership does breed stability. And being in an apartment liver, I understand that people come and go. I didn't, but most of my neighbors did. So I think we need the mix, that we provide housing, home ownership, and also apartments, and put them not next to each other. So.
Thank you. Ms. Swift?
A similar question was asked 4 years ago, and I remember saying if I had my druthers, I'd prefer no more apartments. But I think what people react to when they hear of apartments or condos going in is the cars that are lined up along the street on both sides. And even though our Planning Commission and our Director of Community Development holds the developers to providing enough parking spaces for two cars per apartment. Sometimes the management of the apartment then allows the residents to use their garage space for storage, and then they're parking out on the curb. So I think whenever we have apartments, it's really important to have a good management person in charge and to hold them to the requirements of keeping those garages open for cars.
Thank you. That concludes the question period. To the members of the audience, if your question was not addressed, I'm sure that the candidates will stay around a little bit afterwards and you can speak to them individually. And now we'll have our closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute. We'll start with Ms. Swift.
As in 2010, I want Buena Park to be a family-friendly, business-welcoming, and education-oriented community in which citizens enjoy a safe and beautiful and resource-rich environment. When I was brought home from the hospital as a newborn me by my parents, there were 5,000 people in Buena Park. Now there's close to 85,000. And so as things are getting crowded, we need to find ways that we can meet the needs, especially traffic needs, and also get to know each other. And so I encourage all residents out there and the religious communities to get involved and participate in city events and improve your own portion of our community. Thank you.
Ms. Vaughn.
Well, I am truly excited to be included in this group of qualified candidates. Our city council faces a unique challenges because we want to retain the small town feel, but at the same time match the modernization and growth of new businesses we are seeing in our neighboring communities. There are several exciting opportunities in our future, and I am confident that we can make a strong contribution to the city council and our beautiful city of elected. My experience as a business owner and the defense industry has prepared me to solve intricate problems, develop solutions, and find compromise within groups of leaders that have diverse range of opinions. If the residents of Buena Park elects me, I am confident that we can build a stronger and vibrant Buena Park.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzales.
Good evening again. My name is Paul Gonzales. I'm number 5 on the ballot. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on a wonderful program again this evening. I'd like to thank the city staff. I'd like to thank the city council, the ladies and gentlemen here today, and I'd like to give a special thanks to all of those watching at home, if you're still there. My name is Paul Gonzales. I'm number 5 on the ballot, and I will see you at Silverado Days. Thank you, and good night.
Mr. Berry.
Thank you. I've lived in Buena Park over 50 years. Together with my wife, Rinda, we have purchased our own home. We're members of the Chamber of Commerce. We've raised 3 children, and we have a relatively new goal of spending as much quality time with our 3 grandchildren as possible. We have a 4th one on the way, which is Violet, and she's due on Election Day, as far as I understand. So we have a new one in the mix there. Each of you has an opportunity to vote in this election. We're working on 3 members of the City Council that'll be elected. I would ask that each of you carefully choose elected officials who represent you on this council, ones who can use creativity, bring management skills and experience to represent you on the City Council. My name is Steve Berry, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mr. Ferguson.
Hello again, my name is Greg Ferguson, and I am on the bottom of the ballot, so once again, vote from the bottom up, please. I moved to Buena Park 24 years ago. After my in-laws passed away, my wife wanted to be close to one of her siblings, and her brother lives in Buena Park, so it was about family. I may not be a great public speaker, but I'm a great public listener. If any of you would like to get a hold of me, my email address is fergy, F-E-R-G-Y, @pacbell.net. Once again, please vote for me. Look for from the bottom up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slahy.
Yes. I believe one of the things that we need to look at in our city is cyber integration. You have a great resource, but very few people know that it's here. When I tell people I live in Buena Park, they say, oh, that's interesting. Where is that? That's not right. This is a beautiful city. Great, great location. It's premium. Wonderful history. And people should know where it is. When you start to Google or use your voice-activated phone to say Buena Park, it says Winter Park. We need to be on the map. This is something that we deserve. This is the way our new Chamber of Commerce should be working. It should be working through Yelp integration and Google integration. Whether you're familiar with it or not, this is the future. Ghost Town belongs inside Not Scary Farm, not outside of it. Join me, Al Salehigh, to build a better Buena Park.
Thank you, Mr.
Oh, I'm number 1 on the ballot.
Mr. Beeger.
Thank you again for this opportunity tonight. I'm humbled and honored to be part of this process. Growing up in Buena Park, I know we live in a great town. I'm going to let you know that a vote for me is a vote for yourself, because up here I will be your voice. My public works experience makes me critical of any actions taken at City Hall. My door will always be open, and I'll always be transparent. Our neighborhoods need attention. Our safety is an ongoing process, and we have more work to do to reach our city's full potential. I'm Brian Beeger, and I am ready to work for you. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
I have enjoyed participating in tonight's forum. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, the other candidates for being civic-minded and running for a seat on City Council. The future holds both challenges and opportunities. We should strive to meet these challenges and to maximize our opportunities. As your councilman, I will work to ensure that Buena Park residents have a safe, desirable city in which to live, work, raise children, and retire. I know and love our city, and I pledge to maintain sound fiscal policies while preserving and enhancing our quality of life. 4th on the ballot, for Buena Park equals for Baron Knight. So email me at baron@baronknight.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. On behalf of the City of Buena Park and the League of Women Voters of North Orange County, I want to thank the candidates for running and for participating in the forum. Thanks also to our timekeepers, Lyman Bergmeyer and Chris Nelson, and question sorters, Mary Furman, Arlene Bergmeyer, and Keith Nelson. And thank you for being such an attentive audience and asking great questions. Please check out smartvoter.org and pick up your Easy Voter before you leave. To watch this program at home, it will be televised daily at 2 and 9 o'clock on your local government channel, Buena Park TV. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.